in the book of Matthew, chapter 4, verses 1 to 11. Hear these words from the gospel according to Matthew about Jesus' time of temptation. Then Jesus was led up by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. He fasted for 40 days and 40 nights, and afterwards he was famished. The tempter came and said to him, "If you are the Son of God, command these stones to become loaves of bread." But he answered, "It is written, one does not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of God." Then the devil took him to the holy city and placed him on the pinnacle of the temple, saying to him, "If you are the Son of God, throw yourself down, for it is written, he will command his angels concerning you, and on their hands they will bear you up, so that you will not dash your foot against a stone." Jesus said to him, "Again it is written, do not put the Lord your God to the test." Again the devil took him to a very high mountain and showed him all the kingdoms of the world and their splendor. And he said to him, "All these I will give you if you will fall down and worship me." Jesus said to him, "Away with you, Satan, for it is written, worship the Lord your God and serve only him." Then the devil left him, and suddenly angels came and waited on him. Here ends the lesson.
So, this season of Lent, we have been looking at the concept of the dark wood, and or the gifts of the dark wood. It's a book by Eric Elnes, and so our sanctuary is very stark and barren, so that you can feel more of the dark wood. Now it's changed dramatically with the artwork. Do you even feel the difference there? That the artwork almost provides a barrier to the deaf. You know, it helps shield some of it. You can still see the big cross, but that other cross is not as noticeable. And the flowers, I keep wanting to remind people, because I don't want people to be offended, but the flowers are in the narthex, and they're beautiful, and they will be delivered to people who are in need this afternoon, and they will greatly appreciate them. And please do appreciate them when they're in the narthex while you're there. I just don't have them in this space on purpose. And you'll see that when you come in on Easter and you see how Easter is so much different than this. So this week, when we look through the gifts, we meet the gift of temptation. So I'm wondering, what temptations have caught you in life? I'm going to guess that for most of us here, we have not succumbed to any temptation that is morally or legally wrong. There's those kind of temptations. You might be thinking, but I'm wondering if you're thinking about maybe a temptation to have eaten something you maybe shouldn't have, or a temptation for pride, or envy, or deceit. Sorry, I'm distracted. But somebody left a phone. Okay. And I don't think I would have stepped on it, but I want to make sure everybody's got what they need. You know, like what are the temptations? Sometimes there's little temptations that we do succumb to. But illness takes us to a different place, which really I had to sit with a lot this week. And it's a place of, he wants us to think about how many of us are tempted to do good work that just isn't our work to do. Think about that. Are you tempted to do good work that isn't your work to do? And this plays in, the best way that I could understand that is the times when we overfunction or we rescue people or we enable unhealthy behaviors in others. Because those are things that we can do and tell ourselves that we're doing this out of the goodness of our hearts. And they look to be good things on the outside. But they do not ultimately help the person for which we're doing them. The best example, or the easiest example maybe, that I went for was helicopter parenting. That's a real term right now. And if you haven't heard about it, helicopter parenting is when parents over-involve themselves in their children's lives to the point of determining successes. So an over-functioning parent would be the one who calls the school and says, next year my child will be in so-and-so's class, and expects that to be done. And I saw this play out on Brian's kindergarten visit, which was a long time ago, but I was just so struck by it. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. A father was there with his son, and there was a jelly bean guessing game. And the father poured out the jelly beans and counted them so his son had the right answer. And I was, being a teacher, rolling my eyes all over that room. I couldn't wait to get away from him. I was like, ooh, stay away from that one. But we do those kind of things sometimes. The other thing that I've heard is from professors, college professors, whose jobs have been threatened because the grade they gave did not meet the parents' expectations. You know, we have to learn how to live. And this is one of these sermons that I'm probably preaching to myself because I'm very good at overfunctioning. But when I overfunction, I deny others the privilege of accomplishing something and feeling that self-esteem that comes with an accomplishment. When we make everything go right for people, they don't learn coping skills to deal with life when it doesn't go right, because that happens to all of us at some point. And when we raise children to think that they become grown-ups who think that everything should go their way. And so there's this entitlement. But you have to do it my way because I always get my way. And then they have a really hard time fitting in with the rest of us who are not as apt to give them their way because it might conflict with our way, right? You know, we can all get our egos bumping up against each other sometimes. And what's really striking to me is that when we look at God as our ultimate parent, God does not overprotect, over preserve, or even perfect our lives. God tells us that we will always, he promises us presence, that he'll be there till the end of the earth, and promises unconditional forgiveness and love. That's the promise that we get. We don't get this, oh, don't worry, everything will always be right, and you will live in a perfect world. It's at this point that I think that the scripture is so helpful to us, to hear this story of Jesus' temptation, because not only did God not protect Jesus from that, or, it seems as if it was God's plan that Jesus needed to spend 40 days in the wilderness without any assistance, without any food, to sort of figure it out, so that he would be ready to go out and minister with others. Almost as if Jesus had to feel his full humanity. He had to know what it meant to hunger the way we hunger, and what it meant to feel alone, and to be tempted. So I want to talk about the temptations now, because, I guess I always thought about the temptations as Jesus resisting the power. Jesus obviously had an ego that was in check, right? He wasn't looking to be, people talk about that. In the scriptures, Jesus doesn't refer to himself as the Son of God, except in John, which that's a whole nother conversation. But in the other scriptures, Jesus refers to himself as the Son of Man. He's the Son of Man. He owned his humanity completely. And illness helped me to think about these temptations a little differently. So the first temptation is the temptation to turn stone into bread. Pretty basic. Would have fed Jesus. But think of it in a larger way. If Jesus had the ability to turn stone into bread, he could have solved world hunger. Everyone would have right there for them food every day, always. Never have to go look for it. Sounds pretty good, right? There's plenty of people in this world today that would be very happy for God to put down bread in front of them. But what's the flip side of that? What's the negative to that? Wouldn't we just become needy children, sitting there waiting for our bread to show up? Come on, God, I'm hungry. Let's go already. We would rely on God, but not it wouldn't be a positive relationship, would it? And then there's the temptation to throw yourself off the top of the temple because you will not even dash your foot on a stone. So show us a miracle. Just do the miracles. Just do miracles all the time. Make all the miracles happen. Kind of reminded, when I was thinking on that one, that scene from Bruce Almighty keeps coming to mind, where Bruce gets all of these prayer requests. And he just gets so frustrated that he says yes to everything. And it creates absolute chaos because not everybody can get what they want because they conflict, right? And if there were no more if miracles happened all the time, then there would no longer be anything miraculous. There would no longer, nothing bad would ever happen. And on the one sense, it's like, yeah, that would be good. We're tired of the bad stuff. Let's, give us that for a little while. No more bad stuff. But I think we would end up creating our own bad stuff. And then there's that temptation that if Jesus would follow, if Jesus would follow the devil, the Satan, the adversary, whatever you want to call it, he could be in charge of everything. He could rule everything. Wow. Then Jesus could truly create equality and justice for the whole world. I like that idea on the surface. But again, what's the flip side? What would we lose if there was never anything to defend, a right to defend? To me, it's like we would lose our ability to think and to debate, to discuss, and to try to change anything. There'd be nothing to change. It would just all work. It's hard to sit with, but I hope you sit with that a little bit. Just play with those scenarios in your mind a little bit. So what I think Jesus does is not just resist the temptation to be in charge, because he already is in charge anyway, but he resists the temptation to make the world perfect, even though that's what so many of us say we wish would happen. This picture is, or drawing, is by William Blake. It's called The Second Temptation because it's based on Luke's temptation, but Jesus is the figure on the right, and the figure in the middle is the adversary, the Satan figure, showing Jesus the kingdom and everything, all of creation that he could be in charge of. And what is so striking to me in this one is look at that Satan figure. It's not what we normally imagine or see. This guy looks good. He looks like a good guy. He has this like Moses, Elijah kind of look. I've seen some God pictures that look like that. That very distinguished, intelligent man with the beard, and we see all of his muscles. He looks strong. He looks like he would be good at being in charge. We tend to look to those kind of people, don't we? And it makes me wonder, are we so easily fooled when someone comes off as being intelligent and contemporary and well-dressed? Do we think that they might have the answers? Well, Elnis takes some time to give his own version of the legend of where the adversary came from. That's not in the Bible. There's some things, we have this story in Job. God has this conversation, okay, yeah, you can take Job. I don't think you can do enough to Job to make him turn, and all this. We don't really know where this adversary comes from. But Elnis, in researching them, his legend is that the adversary, the devil, the Satan, whatever you want to call him, started as one of the high angels, but gets frustrated with God because God is so committed to believing that there is good in humanity, that in the end we will do the right thing. Okay, that free will work, and that we'll do good and with each other. And the adversary can't handle it and is like, I'm done. I'm going to do it my own way. And so in the dark wood, the adversary has built for us a well-lit, clean, paved path through the wood. So that when we find ourselves in the dark wood, if we find that really well-lit path, we're going to go towards it, right? And yet, because the adversary has lost his way, that path doesn't lead anywhere except around the wood. You don't end up anywhere. You just get lost. And God's path through the dark wood is the more elusive one. It's not well-worn. It's not obvious. It requires us to take that time in silence and really listen deeply to what God says to us. And that's how we find our way. And God's path leads us closer to God, where we'll find more love, more hope, more peace, and more joy. So it's my hope that we'll do that we'll take that time to listen for God and not just take the easy road, but more the one less traveled, because that's the one that really leads us to God. And I'm going to end with a quotation from Elnis about listening for the wisdom. The Spirit of God beckons us not to be good, but to be human, humble, of the hummus of life, earthy, which ultimately means finding our elemental waters, finding those places within us where God connects, and living into our fullest energies. You can and will do a lot of good by walking the path that brings you most fully alive in the world. But in order to stay on this path, you must learn to say no to doing a great many good things. May it be so. Amen.